Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Gallup doing their annual survey of the distribution across the political spectrum, how people identify, finding that the share of conservatives in 2019, people who self-identified as conservatives, ticked up from 35% to 37%, and the share of liberals declined for the first time. The share of conservatives increasing for the first time since 2011 with the tailwind of Tea Party energy, and liberals declining such that there is now a 14-point spread between those who self-identify as conservative and those who self-identify as liberal. That would seem to bode well for the election year with respect to the presidency and, frankly, Senate, congressional races, perhaps local races in some states not named Illinois. But, then you get into definitions of, okay, I self-identify as conservative. What does that mean to me? Self-identify as liberal. What does that mean to me? But nonetheless, the spread is directionally interesting. The only thing that could potentially disrupt that is the ongoing schism, if it becomes something that is pronounced among Christians when it comes to Trump. Can a handful of never Trumpers and I suppose some moralizers on the left, like Red Diaper Baby, Red Diaper Mannequin, really, Pete, or even Scold like Elizabeth Warren, can they shame Christians into, if not voting for the left, not supporting Trump? This all stems from the brouhaha over the holidays with respect to this Christianity Today editorial calling for Trump's conviction and removal from office because he is not a man of character fit for the office. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Eric Metaxas. He's the author of If You Can Keep It, The Forgotten Promise of American Liberty, and host of the nationally syndicated Eric Metaxas Show. He has written The Christian Case for Trump, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that addresses some of the criticisms that have been lodged both at Trump as well as Christians who are supporting him. Eric, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's great to join you. And just so you understand, I'm joining you from the back of a taxi cab in Manhattan, New York City,
all right,
where the weather is quite different. But let me just tell you, when people talk about a rift among evangelicals, that is the definition of fake news. There is no rift among evangelicals. The reason I say that is that most people that I know understand the basics of what it means to elect a president. They don't believe that you're electing somebody to be a pastor, or that most of the people, who rise to run for the nation's highest office have themselves had uncheckered past. I mean, all you have to do is think of the man on our 50-cent piece, John F. Kennedy, still highly revered. We now know that he brought prostitutes into the White House regularly while he was president, not 10 years before that he did some weird stuff. We know that FDR, lied to the American people about his health so that he could get a third and a fourth term. We know that he had a mistress throughout his presidency. We have had good and great leaders who have not risen morally to the standard that serious Christians would like. But after you've suffered through 8 years of President Obama, you realize there is something even more important than, the personal life of the president. You have to think about their policies. And when you talk about morality, this is the funny thing, Dan, is that when people talk about morality, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what are the policies of this president toward the poor? Is he going to improve the economy to lift people up, to give them chance, to give them a hope? Or is he going to play into the narrative that they are kind of permanent losers who need government assistance, who will never be able to get a decent job and all that kind of stuff? So if you really care about the poor beyond virtue signaling, you have to think about that. You have to think about that. If you care about the unborn, you have to think about that. So moral issues don't only go to the personal character of the person you're electing. They go to what would the policies of that person do. And in the case of the choices that we have now and the choice we had with Hillary Clinton, to me it becomes an open and shut case. And I'm far from alone in thinking that.
No, that's true. But and the criticism you get from never Trumpers, Christian never Trumpers, is well, that sounds like a transactional outlook. That somebody can be a reprobate.
But you know what
Somebody
that is?
can be a reprobate.
Transactional vote.
Yeah.
A transactional outlook is called voting.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you vote for someone who's a human being other than Jesus Christ, you are making a transaction. Now, the key is that people try to say that transactions are by definition dirty. That's utter nonsense. It's like when I go buy a loaf of bread, I don't think, well, you know what, I really should have prayed first to see if God would deliver the loaf of bread. Paying for it really kind of wipes out the possibility of God doing something miraculous. I mean, transactional is not dirty. It can be dirty. There are dirty transactions. But when people lodge the claim of transactionalism, I say stop right there. That is called voting. That is called representational government. We've done it from the beginning. We voted for slaveholders like Thomas Jefferson. Let's be serious. Let's not gaslight each other and pretend that Christians can't vote unless they vote for somebody who is a saint, and even before saints were saints, most of them were sinners. So it gets a little silly.
No, I mean, I believe in redemption. I think evangelicals forgave Trump for his infidelities that happened more than 10 years ago. And since he's been president, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think he's strayed from his marriage or done anything, reprehensible. But yet you have the Lincoln Projects, their first advertisement, that takes aim. They're splicing clips of the president and his supporters speaking about faith with clips of Trump cursing and speaking crudely.
But do you know anybody? I mean, let's just take anybody in Hollywood, anybody in the news media who doesn't curse like a sailor. Do you know one? Because I actually do not. Do you know anybody in that world who doesn't think that sex outside of marriage is a great thing, and anybody who doesn't think that is a fool? People make fun of Vice President Pence for taking his marriage so seriously that he will not spend time alone with a woman outside of his wife. Tim Tebow, who is the gold standard of behaving like a godly, wonderful Christian evangelical, was mocked for his faith. So this is a classic case of no matter what you do, people are going to find something to criticize. I find the whole thing nonsensical, absolutely nonsensical.
What about the argument that, look, ultimately character is destiny, and so you are hitching your wagon to a place that you're hitching your wagon to someone that is going to a dark place because he is a person of dark character?
Well, to call Trump a person of dark character, to me, there's a level of subjectivity to it that makes it utterly stupid. I mean, what does that even mean, that he's a character of dark character? He's a person of dark character. First of all, I heartily disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. I think he's a man who loves his family, who loves his country, who actually does put his country before his own business and his own money. And that if that were not the case, the last thing he would have done would be run for president. At this stage in his life, he didn't need to do that. So I think this is sniping. This is people looking for something to say, and I don't think they have anything to say. When you actually ask for substance, okay, what did he do? He said something nasty on a hot mic 15 years ago, and I'm supposed to judge him on that. Do you know how many things you and I have said that if they were quoted over and over and over and over, people would say, "Do you know that guy Dan? Do you know what he said?
Yeah.
Can you believe that
Say
guy?"
that all the time.
And you're like,
I know.
I say stuff like that every week. I say something that I 10 minutes later I go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that came out of my mouth."
Yeah.
I apologize to my wife, whatever. So the point is, if he had said that from a podium, if he had cheated on his wife in the White House, there are all kinds of things where people like me would be the first to speak up. But when you're going back to find what somebody said, and by the way, Bill Clinton, and I would say LBJ, and probably more, every president except George W. Bush and Jimmy Carter, who are outspoken evangelicals, are probably guilty of saying these kinds of things like daily. Hillary Clinton is known to be one of the most foul-mouthed people. He talked to CIA, he talked to
Oh,
people
yeah,
in
Secret
the White House.
Service.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying you got to understand. So we have a choice between between Hillary Clinton, who's known to be mean and vulgar, daily, and who would put forward policies that most people of faith, not just evangelical Christians, but every serious Catholic, every serious Jew, every serious Muslim would say these are profoundly immoral, being willing to kill the unborn up until birth, all kinds of things. And we pretend like we had a choice between, Mike Pence and Trump. We did not. We had a choice between Hillary Clinton and Trump. And it seems to me that now, with the policies coming forth from the Democratic Party, it's even more dramatic. It would be madness not to vote for Trump. And I really do think when people talk about his dark character, I think that they are just projecting something onto him. I don't think those things are true. I don't think that he is somebody that you could say, oh, he's got a foul character. He does a lot of things I don't like. But for crying out loud, Obama's policies, 90% of them I didn't like, and they affected millions. They weren't just tweets or things said offhand. They affected millions of human beings, and I'm responsible when I vote to think about those millions of human beings. That's just a fact.
Yeah, it seems to me that lost in all of the discussion on personal characters, that your policy choices are also tell us something about your personal character, and so both should be assessed through a prism of character. And just because there are things that you don't like that Trump has said or done at present or in the distant past, doesn't mean that you've now ceded any ability to apply a character test to politicians.
To let Hillary Clinton become president.
No, but I'm talking about prospectively.
Well, no, it's the same thing. I mean, on the one hand, we had Hillary Clinton. Now we have people who are dramatically more progressive, and that's a nice word for it. I mean, they are socialistic. They are saying things that I think your average American says, "What? You're kidding me!" Like you're pushing, the transgender thing like it's the most important moral issue of our time. You're pushing free everything for everybody. Anybody who raises a family and has a job and has a checkbook knows like that really doesn't work. The only people who think that might work are 20-year-old college students who themselves have never had to do payroll or balance a checkbook, and they go, hey, that'd be great. Like, I'd love to get, free college, or I'd love to have my debts canceled and stuff. But your average American understands that it's absolutely irresponsible to say those kinds of things, to make those claims that if we follow these policies, we're going to be more prosperous. The fact of the matter is people will suffer. If those policies come into play, God forbid, we will suffer as a nation. Human beings will suffer. And who suffers the most? The poor will suffer the most, because we're not going to increase the pie of wealth. It's going to decrease. And, I have to say that to me, that is a moral issue, how you care for the poor. And if you really think that those policies put forward by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders et al. Are going to help the poor, you're more than wrong. But if you really believe it, I can understand why you would vote for them. I'm convinced that if you care about people other than yourself in America, you have to care about those kinds of policies and policy initiatives. And it would be immoral to vote for somebody who is going to do that to the country and who's going to, effectively cripple us, not to say the kinds of people that they would put on the Supreme Court who do not value the Constitution. They consider it a living document, and they're going to basically legislate from the bench, which is the definition of unconstitutional. So there's a lot of stuff here, and I think we kind of get down in the weeds of a conversation like, Trump is some nefarious figure. I don't think he is. If I thought he was, I'd be talking about it. But I think that the whole thing becomes even less transactional when you realize that his kids loved him. He loves his family. He loves his country. That to me is very interesting. I don't think he's faking that, and I think that we have had a recent president who had such a dramatically different view of America that in the end, I think it frightened a lot of people. They said we didn't sign up for this. So as I say, it's complicated, but in some ways it's not that complicated.
He is Eric Metaxas, author of If You Can Keep It, The Forgotten Promise of American Liberty, host of the nationally syndicated Eric Metaxas Show. Eric, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Names matter. Your name, the name you've made for yourself, and the name of the company you represent. Because of you, they're names people can trust. That's why at 4imprint, every name and logo is printed with certainty. We pay attention to every detail because we know the way your name appears is the way it's remembered. So you'll know for certain that every item, from the right apparel to the most popular tech items, will be right the first time, on time, every time, at a great price, guaranteed. Because when you have passion, integrity, and certainty,